From AI models to the harsh reality, my company's struggling database. In my early days with artificial intelligence, I was eager to implement everything I was learning during the UT program in AI. The first area I decided to automate in my company was the accounts to pay to suppliers, with the intention of creating a model that could pre-authorize payments. By that time, we had approximately 6 or 7 years worth of SQL data, accumulated since the system was implemented. Considering this, I assumed that the 7 years of data we had would be sufficient to run an AI model. So I began. I developed my skill query to connect to the databases. As with any AI process, the initial stage involved data collection, followed by the more challenging task of data cleansing. I always say that once the data is clean and organized, the remaining steps to training a model are simple. So there I was, cleaning my data and organizing the databases to determine the dependent and independent variables. I identified the supplier's name, profit and loss accounts, the recurrence of payments to the supplier, the amount, the order request date, the authorization date, the time frame between request and authorization, and the payment date as potential independent variables, with whether it was authorized or not as the dependent variable. Other columns included government identification numbers for the suppliers and their addresses, which were less significant. One potentially interesting variable was the product description in each purchase order, but there was no consistency since it didn't derive from a supplier product catalog, leading to its exclusion. My company used to make payments every Tuesday and Friday on a weekly basis. While running data analysis, I identified a pattern where orders were typically submitted on Monday afternoons or Tuesday mornings, or on Thursday afternoons or Friday mornings, and authorized on Tuesdays or Fridays, showing a recurring issue. This automatic identification led to the elimination of these 3 columns, as it became evident that orders were submitted on the very days they were due for payment, revealing a lack of effective management. When analyzing the supplier's name, I began to notice variations. For instance, one entry appeared as Metalworks LLC, while another had a slightly different name, Metalsworks. The second name had an S between metal and work, resulted in treating them as multiple suppliers instead of one, complicating the analysis significantly. With so many suppliers, it became an overwhelming task to correct each entry. Therefore, we decided to eliminate these complications, ultimately leaving us with just 3 columns: profit and loss accounts, amount, and payment frequency. Furthermore, the dependent variable, whether a payment was authorized or not, was unfeasible since virtually all transactions were approved. We had to explore alternatives and change model objectives to only suggest some payments without them being formally pre-authorized. As we proceeded with the remaining columns, regretfully, the profit and loss accounts were incorrectly identified, with suppliers selling stationery categorized as raw materials. My eyes were facing the harsh reality. Despite having 7 years of data, it was inadequate for creating a reliable model. This was one of my initial realizations regarding small to medium-sized companies. Often, they lack sufficient data or well-structured data necessary for developing robust learning models. Finally, we opted to run an algorithm that determined whether the amounts in the accounts to pay were within the expected amount range for each supplier based on the supplier's history, irrespective of their multiple entries. Simultaneously, we initiated a project to overhaul the profit and loss accounts and added software validations and constraints to data entries. This monumental project aimed to completely restructure the account listings, reclassifying all suppliers to ensure more reliable data collection moving forward. Although the outcome did not meet our expectations in terms of achieving automation, it led to significant improvements in the organization. It required a complete restructuring of the database, emphasizing the critical importance of proper data collection. One key takeaway was that not only the software department, but also administration and upper management realized the value of entering high-quality data into the databases. Data is akin to gold. If it is poorly classified, misspelled, or lacks consistency, it becomes worthless, like coal instead of gold. Now, when I consult for companies, my first directive is to review their data quality. My findings often uncover similar issues. In such cases, the primary recommendation is to reorganize and sometimes even implement a database from scratch, considering many organizations lack a structured one. This may seem daunting and give the impression that they are unprepared for AI, but every company can take steps to embark on the journey toward effective AI adoption.